This is stuff that, quite frankly, I should not have to talk about. Because your mama should have taught you this, okay? And the fact of the matter is, in 2023, we have to. The firearms industry is probably one of the few industry. It's really not an industry, it's a community. The firearms community does not have a formal code of ethics. And that is problematic to say the least, okay? Any professional standards organization has a code of ethics attached to it, all right? And we must recognize that as such.
The Storm Hunter WX weather app is free to download and use and provides you with warning of severe weather even before the National Weather Services issue alerts. This advanced weather app is an important tool for awareness of severe weather that I use every day. Download and use it totally free without in-app purchases on iOS or Android at the link below.
This kind of stuff comes up, and it comes up regularly, and the unfortunate truth is there's no licensing body in firearms instruction to say, no, you're not welcome in the club anymore. Like, anybody can hang a shingle and decide they want to teach self-defense, firearms. You can become a martial arts instructor. Master Ken is real. You can get a black belt in stupid foo online and hang a shingle and teach students the dumbest thing you ever did imagine, right? And that doofus Dale Brown actually believes his stupidity, and nobody can tell him otherwise. But recognize, here's the thing. So that's that, in case you haven't realized, that's that Detroit urban survival dude. And anybody who's ever studied any martial arts period whatsoever, if you put that guy in a gi with a red belt on, he's every bad 80s martial arts instructor, but he actually believes it. Yeah. He does actually believe it, okay? No, he's not a character at all. He absolutely 100% believes what he's doing, which is bazonkers.
And it's so stupid that you can't tell the difference.
Right. Well, so pose law exists on the internet, and you just can't tell anymore if people are caricaturing or actually talking about what that which they believe in. So pose law is real, okay? And so it's on us to police our own community, okay? As a community, we have the right, every community does, to set their own standards of behavior and to set their acceptable practices. So some of this discussion is going to be me letting you know what the standards are in the community that I keep. We have developed, and we are still developing, we haven't quite finished it up yet, and I'm going to actually get your help in finishing developing it, a code of conduct, an ethics standard for all active self-protection certified instructors that we will all agree to. Now listen, there are plenty of things that I hold myself to as an ethical and moral standard that I wouldn't hold other people to, okay? However, there's got to be some baselines of agreement of how we treat ourselves and other people. That's all society has this as a baseline, all right? If we go all the way back here, these phrases, a logos, an ethos, and a pathos, this comes from Aristotle, all right? It's from Aristotle's rhetoric. And he talks about, as an educator, as a teacher, as an influencer, and I know that's a bad word in a modern context, except for, everybody wants to be one and everybody wants to talk bad about them. If we talk about who's an influencer, it's one who wields influence. What is influence is the ability to sway people's decision making, right? Every leader is an influencer. Every manager is an influencer. You have influence over other people in helping them make decisions. More people have that, and that can be a good thing or a bad thing, okay? We are in the teaching business. So every teacher has 3 layers of meaning to their education and to what they offer people. That's Aristotle's main kind of point in his book Rhetoric, okay? And that is they have their logos, their ethos, and their pathos. And their logos is their information. It's that which they are giving. Here's the truth of the matter in these things, okay? So we can talk about that as technique. We can talk about that as, we talk about evidence-based pistol skills all the time. And that's a big deal at active self-protection, make sure that the information is good. Okay, but more than that is the ethos. If you have good information, but gauging the quality of your information is not only its objective nature, but also the character of the person giving the information. Let me say that again. The character of the person giving information matters. And if you think, nah, they really doesn't matter, as long as the information's good, I don't care if that person's a scumbag. I don't think that's true. Because we asked the question, would you allow a sex offender to be a teacher in your children's elementary school? I think our answer as a society would be no. Why? Well, wait a minute. The expressed character of that person is such that I don't trust them to accurately give information and not put my children at risk. So that being the case, in firearms instruction, which one's more important, the information that we give or our character? So without the character, the information that we give is really not very useful. Okay? Then finally, the why we give it matters. The underlying motivation and desire matters. And I will tell you that the ethos and the pathos are intimately connected, and you have to recognize that in order to do it well, all right? Because, for instance, I know, Clint, you have a lot of experience doing motorcycle safety instruction, right? So we start asking, first of all, wait a minute, I'm going to teach you how to keep the bike shiny side up, okay? That's cool. It's just technique, you know? However, wait a minute, does the character of the person that I am getting this from matter? I think so. Somebody might say, I don't care if he's a Hell's Angel. Can teach me how to ride a bike. Those guys, man, they ride fast and tight, man, and they're really proficient motorcycle riders. Do I want to learn motorcycle riding skills from a Hell's Angel? I don't think so, because again, the teacher that I associate with, they give me more than just information. They give me that information filtered through their character and their expressed character.
We have a requirement that even when we're not teaching, we have to wear all the gear all the time in the state of Texas. We can be seen by anybody. And if we're caught, we automatically lose our license.
Okay.
So that kind of goes back to ethos.
Yeah, an expressed standard. And then we ask the why. Because some people could become a motorcycle safety instructor because it's a lucrative business. It's not. Except it's not. And so, okay, could you become an instructor of firearms because you think it's a powerful position and it gives you power over people? You certainly could. Could you become a firearms instructor because it's the only thing you know how to do? So, but now will that affect the information that you give? Does that leak into your character? Aha. So what we have to think here is as we start talking about ethos, as we start talking about our character, because that's what we talk about, instructor ethics, a lot of times people just want a list of rules. What is in bounds and what is out of bounds? Is this a touchdown or is it a holding penalty? And I can give you, okay, so here's the NFL list of rules. But if I really want to make a list of rules, and I don't care what it's for, again, if it's a football game or whatever, I have to go back, first of all, to my pathos and my ethos. What is my desire and my motivation? And then how is that expressed in my character to then start to look at what's inside the bounds and what's outside the bounds? Because if I am principle-based, then I have to worry less about whether or not something is quite inside the bounds or not. Because you ever heard that adage, you know, if you play around a mud puddle, you get muddy, right? So then some people, well, is this truly, you know, a violation? If I'm right next to the mud puddle, I'm not dirty, I'm not muddy, because you know, I'm right next to it. Okay, wait a minute. What's my motivation for doing that, and how does that express my character? Yes, ma'am. So we always say, you know, when somebody wants to know exactly is this inside the bounds or outside the bounds, right? And they go, well, okay, so I'm not supposed to steal money from my students. We'd all agree to that, right? That's a pretty easy one. Just, you know, or I'm not supposed to steal their things. And then we say, well, okay, so I was supposed to teach them an 8-hour class, but, you know, it's not really stealing from them if I make it 3 hours. Because they got what they needed was the me to sign their piece of paper so they go get their permit. And so that's what they really wanted. Well, wait a minute. Okay, so I didn't really violate any ethics. But now I go back and I say, wait a minute, what's my underlying thing here? Do I want to actually teach them to be safe and proficient with that? And does my character say, no, we agreed together that I was going to cover this information and you were going to be proficient in it, or I'm going to sign a piece of paper for you? So now I'm like, well, okay, I'm not I'm not playing in a mud puddle. I'm not all muddy here, but I'm standing right next to the mud puddle. Rather than going back and going, no, I want to be a person of integrity. What you really signed up for is to have knowledge transferred to you to help you be proficient. So my first question for you, as you consider yourself and your understanding of who you are, is your motivation behind being an instructor to begin with. What are you trying to do and why? And that's, don't skip over that. Because that starts to be part of your self-conception. Okay, when we start to ask, okay, what's my motivation? Well, I'm pretty badass with a gun, and I want everybody in my community to know all these people to come to me because I'm the authority. And I want to be the authority on those things. Well, that starts to set up my understanding of who I am, which then leads to what kind of character do I express, which leads to what's okay for me to give and what's not. If instead, and I would think this is a much healthier thing, that says, man, everyone has the right to defend themselves, and I want to help them do that in the most proficient manner possible. And my mission is to help people. Well, that's a vastly different expressed desire. That'll lead me to a very different adoption of character, which then gives me an approach to my information that is almost polar opposite. I don't want to make you dependent on me. I want to help you be independent. Do you see how these three interact with each other? And if you don't catch that, then you don't see this as a principle-based, interconnected field. You just look for a set of do's and don'ts. So when I say things like, hey, your student pool is not your dating pool, we start asking questions about, well, why? What's wrong with it? Yeah, I mean, they're both consenting adults. What's that issue? Now, we haven't even got to that place yet. But now instead of, wait a minute, what's the rule? What do I start asking? Where do I start this discussion? What's my motivation and desire? Okay, so if it's my motivation and desire in this business to help students, to educate them, to empower them, to give them good. How do I express that? And this is life and death stuff in my character. My desire is to protect them. My desire is to help them. My desire is to uplift them. And then I have to think, wait a minute, what are ways that my students are at risk? And one of those ways my students are at risk is me. One of those ways that my students could be at risk is me unduly influencing them. Okay, for instance, let's just look in this environment, right? So you all have paid money to come to a class, and right now our 5 instructors kind of have power over you because we are in a position of authority. Not only do we have power over you, we determine whether or not you get that little piece of paper at the end that you signed up for. Now, hopefully, you signed up for the class because you wanted the information. But at some level, listen, this speaks to legitimacy that I am certified by a nationally known organization in this issue. I have authority to grant that or deny it. Therefore, do you want to make me happy? You do. Let's just be real, right? So I know you're like, well, I'm a grown man. I don't need to make you happy. I'm going to do my thing. And if you don't like it, well, then you can pack sand. That's healthy and good, and I totally agree with you. But the reality is it real easy for me to start putting subtle pressure on you? And I do put some not so subtle pressure on you. You will read this book. You will analyze it and come back and teach these things. That's not subtle. It's very overt pressure. I'm going to make you do this work. Want my stamp of approval? Do the thing. But that can leak into unhealthy ways. For instance, I might say, hey, Brent, if you want to be certified as an instructor, I sure could use a couple of holsters. Now you just said, ooh, why?
Red flag.
For what reason?
Because it's almost like a bribery. Like, I'll let you.
I'm using my position of power to enrich myself at his expense.
That's a better way to put it.
And now I'm saying, wait a minute. Am I expressing a desire to help somebody here? Myself.
Which goes back to sexual abuse.
Is my character expressed here in a positive or a negative light? Now I'm using the power that I have in order to gain myself at the cost of others, instead of giving where we both benefit. Now I have to be very careful of this. then what do I adopt as the rule and how I do business? Because let's just say, okay, so I'm out of the dating pool, okay? I caught my limit. Anybody who thinks that they could be married to more than one woman is a fool. I can't handle the one I got. I might have caught. I think so. Anyhow, if any of you get to know Laura Correa, she is literally the best human being I ever have met in my life. She is an absolute, she literally is the best human I know. I'm going to get off verklempt. But so in this kind of environment, I have that power, and it would be a vast abuse of that power for me to use that and say, hey, I have this student in my class. Want to go get drinks? Because does my student have the ability to say no to me? Now, okay, let's just take the whole thing that I'm an old and married man, right? Out of that. But even some dudes, they get away from home and their marital status is their own business. There used to be an old joke in the Navy, you cross the international date line, do what you want. I'm not joking. Not anymore. Thankfully, that's changed somewhat. But the point is, do I know instructors that do that trash? Now, I'm going to tell you, it's straight up, and I'm not sure I'm going to post this on the internet. There are national level instructors who are married couples who met their significant other in class. And it costs me to say, even when it works out, it was an ethical violation in the beginning. Because for every time it works out, there are tons of wrecked relationships and hurt people. And you just don't get to see them. Because the powerful tend to be believed, and those who they hurt don't have the power to say something. And they don't get heard, and so you don't get to hear all of the ruined relationships that go on otherwise. This is why, and the very reason, so one of the ethics of the therapeutic profession is no dual relationships. Why no dual relationships? Because there's a power dynamic between therapist and client that gets muddied when I have outside relationships that I can exert undue influence, and we don't want to have that when we're in this other relationship. So when you are the instructor, you must understand you have a position of influence and authority over your students that you must be very careful with how you exert that power. And whose responsibility is it for that care? Is it the responsibility of the student to defend themselves or the instructor to defend their student? It's the instructor's responsibility to defend their student against their own power. Because, of course, Uncle Ben taught us, with great power comes great responsibility. Dated pop culture reference? Spider-Man? No?
Spider-Man.
A Spider-Man reference? Okay. We're all with you. Woohoo!
I got it, so you're good.
You're good. Shoot! So, guys, before we even talk about what are the things that we will and won't do, this should leak into every area of life. When I start saying, wait a minute, my goal is to help students and to assist them in this life or death endeavor. I can only do that when I express that in ways where I'm a person of righteousness and I do the right thing by my students. And that means if I want to help them, I have to take care of them. So I would never steal their money. So there's an easy rule, right? I'm not going to have a student pay for a class and then not teach them that class. And if somebody is going to be hurt financially, I will take care of my student to my own hurt. Because that's my responsibility. Now, of course, what do I want to do instead? They pay me because I have value as an instructor. I give them more value than what they get because my goal is to help them, but I absolutely get paid for my work. No problems. That's good ethical behavior. Ta-da. But if I have a question, which way do I go with it? If I have a question of, wait a minute, was this taking from my student or not? Was this good for my student? Should I refund my student that money? You err on the side of taking care of your student. And I know people all the time, nope, screw them. They signed up for the class, no refunds, no other that stuff. Now listen, there are plenty of people who are flakes, and I'm not saying you should take reservations and not charge a deposit or whatever. As long as you have an explicit statement that they agree to when they sign up, right? Those are the kinds of things that have to be done. But I also think, I've seen people, nope, I don't have any, there's a no refunds policy. Hey, the day, 2 days before class, my mom died unexpectedly. And unfortunately, I'm just a wreck, and I don't think I'm going to make it. Well, sorry. Policy is we're too close to the thing. No refunds. Now, wait a minute. Nope. It says so explicitly on my website. Is this okay, or is this an ethical violation? It's probably, at least it means you're a crap bag. Would you agree with me? Like, come on, man. I mean, so I think you could look at that and go, now, where does this get muddy? I already spent that money. I had to use that money to pay my bills or to book my travel or to do my thing. Uh-oh. Now what, Laura?
Whatever means necessary, I guess.
So now I'm in trouble.
You're taking it on yourself, however you can, in order to make it right.
So I've said this 100 times. I know that I know for so many years ASP was hand to mouth, and for so many years it was always difficult because you get a certain number of students would attend. Okay, now I can book a hotel. Now I can do the things or whatever. But you need to work really hard to have at least a full class in reserve. And this is what a savings account does. Turns emergencies into inconveniences, right? It's a Dave Ramsey thing, okay, whatever. and in that, he's completely right. But again, if I start with my motivation and desire, and I express that through good character, then I stop living, is this on my list of bad things or not? And then I live a principled, character-motivated life. So let's talk about some of those things that, again, you have to be careful of. So 3 things that rip down everyone. Money, power, and sex. Plain and simple. Money, power, and sex. And those are all intertwined, okay? This is why we say sexual assault is generally not about sex. It's almost always about power. Okay? It's almost always about power. Sexual assault is a power dynamic way more than it is a sexual thing. People that are sexual assaulters don't view the people that they are assaulting as humans. They don't value them. If they just needed a sexual release, they can get that themselves. Okay? They don't need another person for that. To involve another person in it non-consensually is a power move. It's 100% what it is. Okay? So, and again, money is at its core an expression of value, which is power. And people all the time, well, money's evil. No. Money's not evil. It's a tool. It amplifies your character. If you got great character and you give that person $1 billion, you get $1 billion worth of good. If they were a crap bag, you get $1 billion of crap bag. So money, power, and sex. So how do you protect your students from undue influence with money, power, and sex?